type of stuff.
So flag.
On the moon.
No flag.
That's the Boy Scout plus.
That way.
There's a flag over there.
Good one over there.
Yep.
This is what.
Every time we go live, it starts playing the live video.
Yeah, I got you. Okay. Hey, there we go. We have a flag that's brought around. Okay, so
We're ready.
okay. All right. Thanks for joining, everybody. First, we will have a call to order and establish our quorum, so we can get a roll call.
Nate Fries.
Marissa Roberts.
Jeff Honeycutt. So that gives us 4 of our 6. I know we have Adrian that's joining us online as well. Let's go ahead and stand for our Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, do we have, I know this is kind of impromptu, do we have any comments from the public, or is that even?
We don't have anyone who is able to
Okay,
join.
I didn't think so.
I don't know if anyone here has any.
Okay, this is going to be a short and sweet board meeting. We just have one item that was left off of the agenda on July 13th. That's something that was rather important. The board does need to vote on and put into process, and that is the new business piece for the digital learning plan, which I know that you've been working on.
Yes, so is Matt here?
Not yet.
Okay, are you prepared for that?
I think so.
Okay, so we have.
Miss Wright, yes.
That's right.
I haven't
Yeah.
seen the most recent edits.
So
I
we have
put
a-
together the original.
But yes, I am.
Okay, so digital learning plan that needed to be approved in this last meeting, so.
And it was-
Go ahead. Mr. Skelton, take it away.
Well, I cannot really speak to to all the details. Ms. Wright could probably answer that, but I know the charter board approved it pretty much without question. There were several throughout the state that the charter board was approving today. The other ones had a lot of questions. How do you address this and all, but the charter board was fine with the way this was written and presented. So we got a big thumbs up.
So is this like the Lincoln Learning, or is this, can you explain
It's
what this would be?
more about how we are delivering, asynchronous or non, how we're going to do attendance. Those are and then discipline was another issue. But those were the two things that were really the issue last year, was how it's going to be delivered and then attendance. Because that was all over the board throughout the state last year. So they wanted to narrow that some. And like I said, I don't know exactly what our plan is, but the charter board was happy with it.
Ms. Rick, can you speak to it a little more details of what you did on the
What I
final
do
version?
now.
Yeah.
So I know if any school who wanted to offer a digital learning plan outside of emergency learning, so this is a plan, instead of at school, a student is virtual somewhere, you had to submit a change in charter request because you're offering a virtual platform. And so that application is what we submitted. And it included asynchronous is the only option that we're offering. So there's not a synchronous virtual option where teachers are responsible for virtual students during the day. And the content is delivered through Lincoln Learning. So one of the feedback pieces that we got is, how are you delivering direct instruction in addition to content? Because you can't just enroll the kid in Lincoln Learning and then never provide them instruction from a teacher. So where is that certified teacher coming in to deliver direct instruction? So that was one of the things that we addressed in the additional plan. I know Matt has an assigned virtual teacher who's checking in on all the asynchronous teachers.
Not yet. Are we talking about new hires tonight? I know that we cannot do that.
This is the only topic tonight
Okay.
that we're talking about.
So that-
Because it was left off of the last agenda.
So that's the plan, is to have a teacher who's in charge of all of those asynchronous students, who's doing the direct instruction and tutoring sessions and keeping up. And then how are you going to take attendance in that? What are you looking at to qualify a student as present versus not present. And then if there's a disciplinary issue in the virtual world, they misuse their technology, they leave comments that aren't appropriate, those kinds of things. How are you addressing that? And that's all based on our existing discipline policy because it includes technology use as well. And then the last feedback was, how are you addressing special education in 504s? How are you making sure that accommodations are in place and that students are being served according to their IEPs and 504s and that the needs that we have to meet legally are being met. So those were the things that Matt addressed in following up. And I actually asked him when I found out we were coming here tonight to do this, to send me the revisions so I could read through it and respond to it. So those are things that he addressed that the charter board approved today.
Okay, so the charter board has already approved.
Yes.
Yes. So without approval, we would not have been able to offer a virtual option to our students.
Is there a copy of it anywhere? Like, is it a live Google document? How is this document so accurate?
So it was a Google document. I have the version that we submitted originally, but I don't have the version that has the edits.
And we'll send that out first thing in the morning to you guys.
So we are approving it without seeing it, or?
Well, you're really,
Well, it seems
I
it's already-
guess that's true. You're approving it, because it really should have, the steps would have been, you guys would have approved it, and then the charter board has approved it. So if you make any changes to it, then it's going to have to go back to the charter board.
Heather, did the charter board approve it with Matt's special education edits? Did the special education edits and then they approved it?
I'm assuming so, Adrian. I haven't seen the final draft.
Okay. So when it went to the charter board, did they ask us to make special education
Ms. Young's
edits?
walking in.
So we had to, they gave us feedback, not the charter board, but the Department of Education gave us feedback on the original application. The specific things that they asked us to address before they would even put it on the board agenda. So I'm gonna turn it over to Matt, who actually did all those edits.
Yes, which edit would we like to talk about?
All of that.
All of them?
The final version.
So the big changes we had to make dealt with the science of reading. So for K-6 students, we have to offer some synchronous learning. So when we talk about those developmental phonetic skills in K2, those have to be daily lessons taught synchronously. And then for 3rd through 6th grade, we also have to have small reading group time throughout the week, at least 3 times per week. So those are the big changes we had to make. We also had to have, at the first application, and Heather may have mentioned, was not the version. It got changed, so we had to add a special section about special education, a special section about evaluations of special ed students. So those things had to be added, and then we had to have it on an agenda that you guys were gonna review this plan. All the subcommittees at the Department of Education approved it, and then the charter board approved it this afternoon, and actually they didn't have any questions about our plan.
Is there any way that we can pause and print it so we can see it real quick?
Yeah.
Okay.
It is very general because they don't want the beef of the plan, if that makes sense. They just want to make sure you're following certain things. But I can email it to all of you, unless you want it printed. Okay.
Is there a printer here?
Yes, it's right over here.
You can email it to me.
Yeah.
So if I'm following the order of events correctly here, this plan was already approved by the people that really need to approve it. It was approved by the charter board, correct?
Yes.
So we're voting on what exactly?
You have to show support of the plan.
It's
Okay.
approved pending board approval, pending the
Okay,
board.
yes, there we go. I like that.
So, go ahead. So,
Matt, Heather mentioned that we're gonna have a certified teacher giving some direct instruction. Is that at both campuses?
The high school has an asynchronous, and the state is good with asynchronous for older kids. So that is the option we went forth with. And both plans, even before we had to make those adjustments, we have check-ins. And I don't know if Heather got to talk about the mental health piece of it, but that was a huge component we noticed with our virtual students last time, was just mental health of students staying at home, and they're gonna have check-ins with the counselor. So we think those pieces will be huge. And just
In the plan, the counselors?
yes.
And those are face-to-face check-ins, not through Zoom, your camera's off. They have to be able to see you once a week through a camera, once a month in person in the building.
That was once a week,
Once a week,
virtually.
virtually, face-to-face, once a month, in person in the building.
Thank you.
Heather, has anything changed with our numbers since we talked last as far as who and who?
We have 8 7 through 12 students signed up for virtual learning.
And does that look like that's where you're gonna stay for a little bit?
I think so. No one has contacted us about adding virtual because they lose their arts. They lose the ability to do all the arts classes if they choose that, because we cannot offer those things virtually.
Right. And Matt, you were at 14?
We are now up to 22. And our number will probably keep increasing because we have the students that do not have the option of vaccination. So a lot of those people that have added on have said, hey, as soon as my child turns 12, we will go through the vaccination process, they will be returning. And we did find that across the other schools today at the charter board, those that have the elementary students, that number is going up.
Does our plan have a teacher-student ratio written in for our asynchronous?
At the high school level, it's 1 to 100, 150 total students.
And at the elementary, we went 10 above the state number for each grade level.
I'm sorry, Matt, can you explain? I don't.
Yes, so for kindergarten, you can have 20 kids per a teacher. So for the virtual classroom, we can have 30 per teacher.
And what are we doing if the 22 are in all different grades?
Right now, we're planning on staffing that with just one person because the reading piece is the most important part for the synchronous part. And on the asynchronous part of that's a lot more flexible. But we do have students signed up from grade K through 6. Everyone's represented.
Okay, so if we approve this plan, we then are gonna have to move forward and also improve the staff, right? In the future to cover this, because K through 6 is, we're just assuming the kids K through 2 are on the same reading level in the same grade. That one teacher would be spread really thin if the purpose of having a teacher is to host a small group instruction, right?
So the phonetic piece that's required is just that daily 15-minute phonetic piece.
Not
Grade
small.
1,
With grades K2.
K2.
The 3-6 is where you get into the small group requirement.
So Matt, do we currently have enough staff to cover this at our current numbers?
We would need one staff member when we talk about our virtual, because last year how we covered it was we pooled staff members and we reduced, and Ms. Roberts is honestly part of that, where we condensed class sizes. So we will need one staff member to be that virtual teacher to start off the year.
Existing staff member or new hire?
That would have to be a new hire, that piece.
Is this a position that was, I know, month and a half ago, 2 months ago at board meeting, we had a list of, I think it was 11 vacancies, and I think 8 of them were new hires. Was this involved in that planning, or is this something that's?
It was in the planning, in the budgets that, Ms. Wright and I had budgets that you all never received. It was in those budgets, yes. The budget you received came from a different source.
So is the plan that we're being asked to approve today, it's dependent on that new
So
position?
it is not in this plan, this written plan. To make it work most efficiently, we're gonna come back, because we have positions that the board asked us to come back with, dealing with our dyslexia numbers and dealing with the requests that the 712 campus and the K6 campus had originally. So, and Ms. Colville has actually provided some budgetary numbers for us so we can come back with that plan to you all. This plan does not require that. Is it gonna be best practice? Absolutely.
So it's not dependent, so we could vote to support it, assuming that we have time to look at it really quickly. We could still vote to support the plan that's approved by the state board, without necessarily approving a new position tonight.
Yes,
Okay, thank you.
Would that new position be covered by any of the ESSER funds?
it's a perfect use of the ESSER funds. And Vic, I just shared one part, and I'm sharing the second part with Vic so he can work his magic for you all. They did add another addendum to it, which dealt with RISE and the science of reading. It also dealt with how to do interventions, because across the state, that became an issue during virtual school. You know, how do you provide intervention time? So all those things are in there. The one change the state did make, so you know, is they gave us this waiver for 3 years. We only requested 2. Honestly, we was only gonna request 1, but they wanted everyone to have 3 years to have this virtual option. So.
Matt, is that option up to us, or you're saying they want us to for sure offer this plan?
We're not required to offer it. It just allows us the opportunity to continue offering it.
Okay.
So, and I think today on the agenda, there were 8 charter schools throughout the state that added this piece. They're not a normal piece of their charter.
So in that plan, does it just kind of talk through a little bit, since we came on that? So that teacher for the elementary will be responsible for the attendance. What about the high school?
It will be one person who's in charge of like checking to make sure students are working through assignments and like checking into them. But I was very stringent. Like if you're not working, I'm requesting that you come back to the building because we had a ridiculous number of children who sat at home doing nothing.
So there's one, you're gonna appoint or assign one teacher to have oversight
Of those 8.
Of those 8 kids?
Yes.
Okay. Is that just what they're doing, or are we not?
It will not
They're gonna
be
be
just what
in
they're
addition to, so they'll have responsibility of making sure that they're getting the work done, that they're logging in and getting for the attendance, parent-teacher conference type thing? Or?
I would probably set those because I'll be
Set those.
closely monitoring those as well, and so will Rachel. 8 is very different from the 120 that we had last year. That's a lot easier to keep tabs on, and so they're gonna real quickly learn that if you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing, I will file the educational neglect offense. You need to be in the building because you're required to be here. You're required to learn.
That teacher that you'll appoint will be that same person?
A consistent face.
Tell a joke.
Play the Jeopardy music, something like that. What was it?
There's lots of paper, so it's not a paper issue.
We are not short paper currently.
Currently.
Things change. Waxing accidents happen sometimes in school.
Would Dr. Roberts like to introduce herself to us? And she's with us this evening.
Hello, everyone. Thanks
Good evening.
for sending me the link. I appreciate it. It's nice to meet everyone virtually. Look forward to seeing you in person.
No, absolutely. Yeah, we're thrilled to be able to be adding you to the mix and bringing you to work with our team here. Debbie's doing a happy dance back there off camera. So Allison, your first day is going to be August 2nd, correct?
That is correct.
Okay, good deal.
Did anybody warn her that she's speaking at
8 o'clock.
8 o'clock? I don't, oh, they did? Oh, good.
She's speaking at 8 o'clock for what?
To staff.
Ah, okay. All right,
PD, professional.
there we go. Just throw her right in.
Now we
There
did.
we go.
I'm ready to go.
All right, good.
Question about the online teachers. Are they going to be doing tutoring sessions outside the normal time, or how does that work?
No, if a student is asynchronous and needs a tutoring session, they'll schedule that with me.
Is that the same with elementary?
For ours, it'll be different because they will have small group time with their virtual teacher. And then they will also have kind of open office time, or times that they know they're open on a Zoom, so that way kids can check in. With our younger kids, we found a lot of time they just need someone to say, "Look what I've done," and kind of celebrate them. Because it's just a different animal when you're a kindergarten through sixth grader doing virtual school. Then I must admit, than the high schoolers that Miss Wright allowed me to work with. So. Still working with one.
Lewis had to say bye to a lot of cats and dogs this last year.
Yes.
Yeah.
I can imagine. That was always when I was doing the virtual with our students. And that lovely March through June, we always had to greet the animals first.
Hey, Matt,
Important.
just in case the printer does not become a valid option tonight, would you forward that to us?
Yes.
for the-
Yes,
so
that is not a problem.
Keep things.
I will share it with you all now.
I need a copy.
No problem.
Thank you, sir.
No, thank you.
Virtual meetings with high school kids is looking at a wall of black names
Oh,
with
No
no
faces.
interaction
Yeah.
whatsoever.
Or neon lights in the background?
Heather, you need to reshare the who was it that did the lip sync battle?
Mr. Haynes.
Yes. We need to reshare that one because I laughed so hard I cried at that.
Mr. Haynes was awesome. If you haven't, we'll repost that
I
on
think,
social
I
media.
think that would make everybody smile. Yes, you did a great job.
So as like a contingency plan, as it gets, potentially it gets worse throughout the year. Not saying that right now, it might be good to start thinking through, what does it look like when you have to have 150 kids? Or 200,
So if
there are already contingency plans, we all thought through that, what that looks like.
So in thinking about like if a student gets quarantined, what we'll probably have them do is connect with Google Classroom and with their assigned teachers through Google Classroom. Because it's switching them to an entirely different program that's not necessarily paced the same way and then switching them back is a nightmare. And I did a lot of that last year. And then if the state shuts us all down, then everyone just moves to Google Classroom and we go back to the virtual instruction where teachers are delivering direct instructions.
And Now, if our district chooses to shut down or one of our schools, with our digital learning plan in place, we're able to keep going and not use AMI days. Where if we didn't have this plan, we would have to use AMI days for those days that we took off for quarantining the school. So
Do I have to put all of the kids on Lincoln Learning for that to work? Awesome, okay.
they just said that with the way they explained it today was the digital learning plan is the key to having that availability.
Okay.
So.
Was Adrian able to get a copy? Adrian, do you have a copy?
I do not.
Vic is sending it now.
I'll forward the 2 files to you.
So the application on page 2, platform, the choices are LMS and.
Sorry, I'm
It's LMS.
looking at you guys from Florida.
Learning management system or a course management system?
So this digital intervention piece that's mentioned in the first page, is that Lexia?
Yes, Lexia, and on the other form, we were asked to give a little more information on the addendum. And it shows, like we've got 95% group, because there is an online piece you can do with that. Learning Ally, some of our students will qualify to use that online. And Haggerty Phonics now also has an online piece.
So for waivers that are being requested, are these things that are still pending at this time? I'm looking at,
If they were part of the plan, they're approved.
The states approved it.
okay, so I see this waivers being requested for attendance, class size, things like that, those have been approved.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so on the attendance piece, attendance is determined by work completion and logging into the system. I'm assuming if you have all zeros, it's, even if you log in, you're not really attending, is that kind of?
Yeah, and with Lincoln Learning, you can see exactly how much time they're spending on each assignment. So if you open an assignment for 56 seconds,
That's not attending.
that's not attending. Are you gonna have a minimum requirement? I think on average, it takes about 15 minutes to finish a lesson. So and that's if you're working fast. But if you're spending less than that, then you're not spending enough time for the lesson itself.
And on the elementary side, we did put some attendance percentage for attending an instructional meeting. That's a very important part with the state for them to be part of the reading interaction. Just recording was not enough, so that's why that number is at that.
So I see on page 6, just talking about the manner and frequency for monitoring student engagement. It says student grades will be updated once a week at minimum. I know there were some issues with that last year where there were some grades that would get, a month, 2 months, sometimes behind. This is something that is going to be more of a tactic of enforcing that with the teachers.
Yeah, so the virtual learning is the part that includes that, but it's a discussion that we're having with our teachers as well, that grades need to be updated more frequently, and then you should be putting in at least a grade a week.
So it does mention on page 1, the small group instruction for K2, at least 3 times a week.
Yes.
So where's the 15-minute phonetic lesson?
I just saw it. Are you talking about the bi-weekly face-to-face check? Oh, no, I'm talking about the
No, I'm
that's
talking
school
about reading
counselor.
instruction.
Yeah, I'm talking about school counselor, never mind.
So if on the describe the expectation for teacher instruction,
What page are you on?
1, 3. Under interaction delivery, page 3.
Oh, page 4.
Page 4.
Page 4, all right. And when you go down to the 4th question, talks about the expectation for teacher instruction interaction and frequency.
Teachers will host sessions via Google Meet to check on group students and provide instruction weekly. Is that what we're talking about?
Even if they try.
Okay, so there will be small group meetings. It says for K through 2, 3 to 5 times per week, based on their iReady scores. So each grade will need to be grouped instructionally based on their academic needs.
Yes.
So that will be quite a bit of small group instruction. Let's say each grade level has potentially 3 small groups. And this is, I mean, not with 22 kids, but since this does hold the, these grades hold the volume of kids who aren't vaccinated, it could increase. Okay, I just want to know what to look for. Okay, so small group, and then it's the 15 minutes of daily instruction in PA, which you're saying is now online via Haggerty?
Well, what model, that part has to be synchronous.
Yes.
So the Haggerty can be used as an intervention. Because Haggerty has now introduced an online version.
Oh, okay. For phonemic awareness, awareness, okay.
Page 9, looking at provide a detailed explanation of how the school will monitor and evaluate the effectiveness. It says that the teachers will evaluate the rigor and comprehensiveness of the program on a regular basis. I'm just curious what's a regular basis? Like what are we thinking for that? Does it need to be more well defined, or is it?
It is not for the state. For the state, they were good with that because they know, I mean, I hate to say I got the vibe today that they are kind of expecting, especially for elementary schools, our numbers to increase on students going virtual. And not knowing where our state's gonna go with mask, within the next few weeks is likely that they're trying to give us flexibility because they know most elementary schools across the state are gonna be in some kind of, dilemma when it comes to students attending school.
I see a couple times where it references pending board approval. Is that Arkansas State Board?
No, that was you all. And then a couple of those things you're gonna see again, like I know Heather's got her handbook committee tomorrow. So like there might be some wording things that change in the handbook to make it a little more clear, those type of things. The main thing they needed was to see that it was on your agenda to get approved. But they did not even ask for us to say, hey, when it's done, call me. It's just, they know you guys are looking at it. So.
But personally, I don't see any glaring weaknesses with it. I feel like you guys have done your due diligence in putting it together, and if the state has already checked that box and it says it looks good from that perspective, then I don't have any issues.
Guys, please forgive me because I'm having a hard time hearing. Jeff or Nate, I think one of you just asked this question.
I didn't ask. Oh.
On page 9, where it says how we're monitoring the digital. Matt, you were cutting in and out. Just can you give me a real short explanation again of what they're asking us to do here? Are they asking us to evaluate the program itself that we're using? Or are they asking us to look at how our students are doing based on Lincoln Learning?
Well, last year, honestly, we were given Lincoln Learning and we threw it at the wall to see what happened. We didn't look at, let's look and make sure all the state standards are in there. Let's make sure it's in the right time frame. Let's make sure it makes sense the way we're teaching it to the kids order wise. So the state just wants to know from us that, hey, you're not just going to put kids on a computer and let them go. You're going to make sure that let's compare these kids to students on campus. Are they learning the same skills? And are they going to be able to show those same skills?
Okay, so how are we doing that? Because that's a good point. Because there were times when I had one on Lincoln Learning last year, and I thought exactly what you just said, like, wow, this is a crazy order, or this doesn't make any sense. But then as we went through the year, it got better. So how are we doing that?
So for this actual plan, we just have to say we are going to do it. And then we can meet with I know that sounds silly, but they just want to say, hey, make sure you're doing that this year. And then we can come up, like, this is kind of the bare bones of the plan. If we think about it, we can always add to it as we go along, because there's parts we need to really flesh out and make more our own. But the state just wants to make sure that we have an idea. Because last year it was different.
So you're saying we are going to do that this year. We're going to have somebody looking at what's going on in Lincoln Learning beside what's going on in an on-campus second grade classroom.
Right. We want to make sure the online student learns the same standards, in roughly the same timeline. Not exactly, because we're going to have students that come and go, because people are going to get scared and then people are going to feel comfortable. And I know, like, even this week, I've got emails where someone heard a news report, they got scared. I heard someone else get a different news report and they got happy and excited and they decided to come to school. So, depending on what they're taking in, is kind of how they're responding.
So do we have, and I guess it would be more the elementary campus since you have more kids, do we have like PLCs set up that are on a schedule to kind of map out, or?
I think the key this year for us is going to be making sure those virtual teachers are involved with our with our staff on campus. Last year, honestly, we built our PLC as here's a virtual team so they could talk about the ins and outs of virtual teaching. Where this year we have seen that we're going to have to make sure the focus is on the instruction and both sides are getting it.
If not, can I get a motion to support the document? So any all in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay, motion carries.
Excuse me, was the second Mike Kara?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you very much. That was the only item we had for this for the board portion of this. So can I get a motion to adjourn? All in favor?
Aye.
Nobody opposed. All right. Thank you very much. We can go ahead and kill the board meeting.
I've sent the Zoom separately
To Allison. Okay.
Do I need to use the other link?
Yeah.
No.